Hello, today we're going to take a look at how we can use Duo two-factor authentication for Windows Logon, but via TeamViewer connections. Now, officially, this is not supported, and if we take a look at the Duo response here, the reason it's not supported because there is no direct integration between Duo and TeamViewer as of yet. So there isn't really a way to do it in terms of having a neat workflow, logging into TeamViewer or using TeamViewer to access Windows devices and then prompting or using Duo for that two-factor authentication. But this workflow that I've kind of put together is working. Per se, there is a few things that you need to do in order to get that to work. As I say, it's not officially supported, so you could really call this a network Wizkid special if you like. But I have seen a request coming for this, so I just wanted to explore a little bit more and see whether we could actually get this to work. So as I say, yeah, it's not currently, at the time of doing this video, there's no direct integration between Duo and TeamViewer. However, you can use the Duo mobile app to add a secondary factor authentication for when logging into TeamViewer itself, and we'll take a look at that and how that works as well. And that uses a one-time passcode or OTP. Furthermore, TeamViewer do have their own kind of two-factor authentication for TeamViewer and accessing, or when you want to access a device that is using TeamViewer, which you have to use, unfortunately or fortunately, if you've already got that in place. However, on the other side of it, we can tinker with Windows to essentially get this to work the way we want it to work, and especially with the TeamViewer client as well. There is a few documentation from TeamViewer on this, and it's fairly new in terms of two-factor authentication actually from TeamViewer, which is quite crazy given that we're now in 2022. But anyway, the versions of TeamViewer that support the two-factor authentication for connections is for all Windows users, it's TeamViewer 15.17, and then for Mac and Linux, it's versions 15.2.2 and newer as well. So there's some information here how you can get it all set up. We'll pretty much go through all of this today in the demonstration, as well as the Duo side, and there's another documentation in terms of activation and deactivation as well. These links will be included in my presentation, so if you are watching this video on YouTube, head over to my website, www.networkwizkid.com, and look for this post, because I'll have the presentation attached to that as well, where you can actually download that. So if you do want to refer to that, you can refer to that as well. In terms of Duo and configuring Duo for RDP or Windows Logon, we already have that configured in this demonstration. So if you are looking at how that aspect can be configured, then do just head over to, well, depending on where you're watching this, take a look at my YouTube channel where I have the steps for configuring Windows Logon with Duo as well. And alternatively, you also have the Duo documentation, which is very good as well. So we won't be configuring Duo per se, that's already configured, but we will see how we can get it to interact with this workflow that we're looking at. So there is a few things to consider. As I said at the start of this video, this isn't an official Duo integration on paper, but it does work. I have got this to work, so if you are looking for whatever reason to get Duo set up in this way, then this will work for you. Now, when we're doing this, we'll potentially have two-factor authentication methods that end users will use. So you'll maybe have the authentication, depending on how you set this up, you could have the authentication from the TeamViewer app, and then you could have the authentication from Duo's mobile app as well. So for end users, that might be a little bit of a pain because they're having to go through kind of two-factor authentication methods, as well as putting in the credentials to actually connect to the device. So do bear that in mind. TeamViewer may need to be configured on a per device basis if you want to set this up for multiple end devices. So you may have to apply the same configuration steps across multiple clients if this is the method that you choose. So again, do bear that in mind. And I just wanted to point out that the experience itself is not as seamless as integrating as you would do with Duo for RDP and Windows login. So do bear that in mind. There's a few more configuration steps that you're going to see today that we'll have to go through before we can kind of get this up and running. Windows devices may require additional configuration where multiple users require access to the same device. Now, again, depending on your Windows devices and how they're set up and configured and whatnot, you may need to have those devices set to automatically log out after a certain period if you've got multiple users using those devices. And the reason being is when you connect via TeamViewer, it's not going to select based on the credentials you enter the actual user that you need to be logging in with. It's just going to kind of open that connection to whatever's already open. So if you are logged in as somebody else and you stay logged in, then obviously that can become a problem. So you really need a method in order to have that device log out. Say for instance, if somebody forgets to log out if they're using their account, and then somebody else might be logging in, you maybe need a method to do that. So again, it kind of goes back to that seamless experience that you get if you integrate Duo for RDP and Windows Logon. This is not really going to give you that seamless capability, if you like. And there's also other ways to do it. Again, with Duo, you can kind of use the Duo Network Gateway, which is probably a really good way of doing it if you've got multiple users accessing systems as well. And that's VPN-less, so you don't really need a VPN, and you can then get rid of the TeamViewer clients if that's something that you're purely only using to maintain this connectivity as well. So again, there's a few other ways, a few other things we can do. We won't discuss that now, but if you want to discuss more, do reach out to your Duo representative or reach out to me on in the comment section, and I'll try help where I can as well. So we'll jump into the demonstration now and get this all set up. Take a look at what we need. So we'll start off with TeamViewer. Again, like I say, the Duo side of things is already configured in terms of the application. The Duo application installed on the Windows machine. So we won't really focus on that. Our main focus is TeamViewer for now. So let's first off look at that. So if we just go over to, I'll just open up the right one, Windows 10. It's this one here. So we've got TeamViewer installed here on this test device, and as I say, what we want to do first and foremost is we want to allow our users outside of the network or wherever they may be to connect to this device. And let's just imagine this is a critical device that we need to access in order to perform some sort of management functions, if you like. So we need to set this, in this case, we need to set this client up and make sure that we can you know, connect to it, but also at the same time you know, use Duo as well. So there's a few things that we need to do. Now this Windows version that I'm actually using in this lab is not licensed, so there is one thing that we're not going to be able to do, but I will point it out, and you can kind of test that yourself just to make sure that it works. But I will show you the actual workflow still working as well. So as I say, once you've downloaded the latest version, if you like, at this stage of TeamViewer, you should have some new features. So if you go under the settings tab here in the top right hand side, we could pretty much leave under the general tab, we can pretty much leave all these as they are as standard, and same with account. We're not really going to mess with that for now. The important point I wanted to show out that you get is two-factor authentication for connections. So once we add an account, we can set up, you can add devices here that would be able to authenticate using the two-factor authentication that's provided by TeamViewer. So we'll take a look at that as well in a minute. Now the next setting is the Windows Logon. So what we can do here is, if we just select this, we can allow TeamViewer the ability to use the usernames of either administrators or all users and the passwords to connect via TeamViewer to the device that you're connecting to. The one thing to kind of point out with this is I've not tested this actually with domain joined clients, so I'm not too sure if it's just working only for Windows local login credentials, or it also works for domain joined as well. So that remains to be seen. If you do test that, let me know, and let me know if it works as well or if it doesn't work. If you're a bit skeptical about actually using this and you just want to, say, stick with the ID of the device, one thing to point out is that this password is always going to change. So that's not ideal in situations where we want to have something predictable like the ID in order to connect. So what we can actually do is, under the settings, we can actually change that to a more predictable password. And if we just go to advanced and show advanced options, what we can do is down here we can set a personal password. So this basically says anyone that knows this password can access the device as well. So this might be a better way of doing it once you've actually set that as well. So if we just head back up to security, we could leave that kind of as it is, and then we simply just use the ID and the password that we've configured in order to connect as well. Another thing we can do for the two-factor authentication, we need to log into our device. So if I just get if I just log in now with my demo account, and then if I just enter my password, just copy that. So I'll just enter this password now. I've got to type it manually because of how I'm connected to the VM. And I sign in. You can see now that because I've already got two-factor authentication set up, I do need to enter a code. So that code comes from the one-time passcode on my device that I've configured with this. So I'll just enter my code now and sign in. And there you go, you can see now that we're signed in with that user. And the way we set that up, and that, by the way, I should point out, was the way or the method in which we use Duo. So the way that I set that up, I can show you now. So what you would do if you don't already have one is create a TeamViewer account. And again, you can see I'm already logged in here. So what you would do then is you go to edit profile, assuming you've not already got this set up. Let's just accept that for now. And then what you do is you go to security. And then lastly what you would do is, in this case, you'd activate two-factor authentication. And it's covered in the documentation links that I'm going to share as well. But you'd add the two-factor authentication here. For this particular account, and then you'll be presented with a QR code, and then you can use Duo, the Duo mobile app, to scan that QR code, and then from that point in you can use the one-time passcodes from Duo as well. So that's how we kind of use the Duo element, or use the Duo mobile app for the TeamViewer side of things. What we're going to look at now is we're going to have a look at how we actually set up this workflow as if someone wanted to connect to this machine. So what we'll do is we'll go to security, and then we'll configure multi-factor authentication, and then you can see here now when we want to add a device. So this is a device or a user that's going to be accessing this machine, or is permitted to access this machine. What we need to do is we need to then download the TeamViewer remote control app. So this goes back to where you potentially would have two authentication apps. Now you could bypass this totally if you didn't want to have that two-factor authentication from TeamViewer when user trying to connect to this, or you could have both on. It just depends on your appetite for friction and security and all the rest of it. But let's assume that we wanted to have that on. We can take a look kind of how that works as well. So I'll just download now the app. So let me just drag this over here actually so you can see. So if I just go to the App Store and I download the TeamViewer remote app, so we'll get that. Okay, we'll open that, agree to all the stuff that you get here, and then what we want to do is we want to go to settings, and then if we go down to TFA for connections, and we scan the QR code. So let's do that there. So we scan that, and you can see QR code added now, so we're good. So if I just move that across here one moment, we can see here that an iPhone's been added, in this case my demo phone. So now we can see this device is in approved devices. So what this means is that when a user tries to connect to this TeamViewer client, this approved device will receive a push notification as well. So we'll just go ahead and we'll press OK on that, and then OK again. And actually, one thing before we do that is I assume when you have multiple approved devices, they may also get the the request, if you like, to approve access. Again, that's not another thing I've tested. I'm not a SME when it comes to TeamViewer, so if this is something that you do test, again, do let me know whether it works or not and kind of what the outcome is there. But in terms of that two-factor authentication for users connecting, we'll just stick with that one device, and we'll go ahead and we'll press OK on that. Lastly, what we'll do is what we should have done actually is I want to demonstrate that you can use the Windows Logon credentials, and on our machine we're using local credentials. So what we'll do is we'll just select allowed for all users, and we'll demonstrate how that works a little bit after. And then lastly, what we'll do, so that you don't have to rely on that randomly generated password, we'll just create a password here as well. Okay, so we created a password now. So what that means is we don't have to rely on this password here. We can just use the ID as long as we know the ID, and the password we should be able to connect as well. So if we actually try to, from a TeamViewer point of view, actually that is pretty much all you need to do. So we can actually test this now, and we'll just test this before we look at the Duo side as well. So if we type in the ID 911-19676, and if we want to connect to that now, all we need to do is we need to type in that password that we created. So that's using the TeamViewer authentication method. Now, if you recall, we also looked at the method for username and password. So how do we do that? Well, if we click on Advanced, the little plus icon there, we can select the authentication method. So we can change this here from TeamViewer to Windows. So essentially, you've got two ways of authenticating, if that's what you wanted, or you could just have the one way. And when you select Windows, it's going to ask you for the Windows username and the Windows password as well. So on our device, we have a user called Kelvin, I believe. So let's enter the password now. And you can see, and you probably heard there, that I'm now waiting for authentication. So that should prompt you on your application, and you can see here at the bottom, waiting authentication here. So if I go to, you can hear it prompting me there. So if I just click that and allow that on my app, you can see now that I can connect in, and we're connected. So again, I'll just disconnect really quick and I'll show you that on the device itself. Okay, so again, if I just connect and then same credentials, log on, you can see there we've got the authentication that's come through, so we'll just approve that, and again you can see that I can connect there. So that's how the TeamViewer two-factor authentication works. Now we actually want to add Duo in the mix, so that we've got Duo and we can kind of leverage Duo and everything that Duo offers in order to make this secure. So how do we do that? So let me just come off of that, and as I said earlier on, there is a feature that I can't set on the Windows machine, because this is not a proper version of Windows, if you like. Just using this for testing, so it won't let me change it. But essentially what we need to do is we need a way to be able to have, when users are authenticating or accessing the machine using TeamViewer, we need a way to have users access the machine but get access to the login prompt, if you like. So if we just sign out now, let's just assume that we've already set that setting, which we aren't, but I'll show you where that is after. Essentially we want users to get to the login page, and if our TeamViewer is set right, we should always have it to, and I'll show you on this one, we should have it to always connect on startup, so start TeamViewer with Windows. And by doing that, you know, as soon as Windows or the machine starts, it's going to start TeamViewer in the background as well. So it'll essentially be running while it's on this login page here. So ultimately we get the Duo workflow to work once we connect to TeamViewer by making sure or ensuring that the users are brought to the logon page within on the particular device itself. Because if they're not, if the device is already logged in, all TeamViewer is going to do is make that connection to the client, and then the TeamViewer client, that is, and if a user's already logged in, then it's going to stay logged in. So you need to make sure, if you have got multiple users, if you've got one user, then you know you could probably disregard this, but if you've got multiple users that need to access this system, then you need a particular way to be able to ensure that Duo still authenticates each user as they access it. So we can just confirm now that we get the Duo prompt when we log in, just to show you that Duo is already configured. So you can see here that I get an automatic push, and I'll just sign in, accept that push on my device. There you go, and you can see then we can log in. Now what I'll do is I'll also log back out with this user, and we'll then attempt this using TeamViewer. And before I do that, actually what we'll do is I'll show you the behavior, the expected behavior, if we just attempt to access TeamViewer, access the machine using TeamViewer without logging out. So if I just go to TeamViewer now and I try to connect, and we'll connect with the same user. And again, I get the two-factor authentication from TeamViewer, so I'll accept that. And then as soon as I accept that, you can see that we can log into the device, and you can see that we're already logged in, so we've not been asked for the Duo to provide that Duo two-factor authentication in this instance. So if we was to log in with another user using TeamViewer, we'd essentially get the same outcome. You know, you won't be prompted to, you know, for the Duo authentication. You'd just be brought into this particular user, in this case being Kelvin. So what I'll do is I'll just exit that, and from here I'll just sign out. So let's sign out of here. And then once we signed out, we'll attempt to authenticate again to the device using the TeamViewer client. So now we're logged out, we'll connect again, and we know it's still running in the background, you can see there. And I'll just click log on now. Again, I get the TeamViewer secondary authentication prompt, which I've just accepted. and now you can see we've been brought now to the Windows Logon. So at this point here, you know, you could specify another user that you have, you know, whatever it may be, and then what we'll do is we'll log in with this user, and this time we should be presented as we are now with the dual authentication prompt. So I'll just click not to remember for now, just for the demo, and I'll go ahead and approve that on my phone, and you can see now that we can log in. So effectively we've completed two-factor authentication in order to connect to the TeamViewer client running on this machine using the TeamViewer application for two-factor authentication, and we've then gone through the authentication for Duo to complete that secondary factor authentication in order to get onto this device. And you can see now that we're logged in. So I'll just come out of there, and what I'll do is I'll just sign back in here. I'll just approve that again. Right, okay. And so I was thinking about the way in which we could potentially do this by ensuring that we do get to the Windows Logon page as opposed to staying or ensuring that users don't stay logged in, because, you know, let's face it, users forget sometimes. If you're connected to a remote machine, you might just, you know, click off the TeamViewer client and not think to sign out. Now, one way I thought of doing this is to essentially go to personalize, and then we go to lock screen, and then as you can see my Windows is not activated, so I can't do this. But essentially what we would do is we would go to the screen timeout settings, and then there's a little setting on there. There's a setting on there that says on resume display log on screen, and we could actually set that to, let's say for instance, 1 minute. So what that would do is after 1 minute of inactivity from the user, essentially what it would do is it'd log the user out and take them back to the log on screen. Obviously it's configurable depending on, you know, first and foremost if you're actually going to set this up this way, and two, depending on sort of the timeout values. I guess that's, you know, down to individual preference. But what I would say is, you know, if there is a user already logged in and another user wants to log in, you know, and they complete the two-factor authentication with TeamViewer, it's not going to, I believe it's not going to, you know, it's going to bring you into, you know, who's currently actually logged in, because TeamViewer doesn't really care about, you know, which account you're using. So do bear that in mind. So I have included some links here on how you could, with the information that's already available for the TeamViewer two-factor authentication as well. And obviously you've got this video to go off. I will share this this presentation as well. But as I say, if you take a step back, you know, this is not really a seamless way of doing this. There is, you know, potential opportunity to kind of bypass, if you like, the duo two-factor authentication in that respect. Yes, you could, you know, provide that TeamViewer two-factor authentication and only allow approved devices. But, you know, if you've got, you know, even just 2 approved devices or 2 people that could, you know, access the same device, you are potentially going to run into the issue where, you know, once that TeamViewer client connects, that both users will be able to use the same the user account that's logged in, if there is one logged in. So do bear that in mind. That the better way to do it would obviously be to be using a method that is supported. So we could use Logon for RDP, and in that respect, if you need to connect to these Windows machines remotely outside of the network, then you would be expected to more than likely have some sort of VPN solution where you could first and foremost get onto the network, and then connect to the RDP, or connect to the Windows machines using RDP, and then you could kind of negate the need for using TeamViewer, basically making it a lot more streamlined. And the second way you could probably do it is by using the Duo network gateway, and that way you would be able to negate the need for TeamViewer. You would also be able to negate the need for a VPN solution, and you could just configure essentially the reverse proxy to connect to each Windows machine via RDP where required as well. We won't cover that. I will probably do some demos on that in the near future, but there is documentation available on the Duo documentation page, so do check that out as well. But yeah, that's essentially how you do it. Hopefully I've been able to demonstrate how it can be done, how you can kind of make use of the TeamViewer two-factor authentication and the Duo two-factor authentication, but obviously with the caveats and the considerations. This was something that I quickly just kind of mind mapped and put together, just as a way to kind of show how it potentially could be done in an unofficial way. So do take it with a pinch of salt. Feel free to test it out if it is something that you're looking at using. I've not seen the request come through for other potential customers or customers, so it does seem like it is a corner case at the moment. But yeah, anyway, the video's here. Hopefully you find it useful, and thank you for watching.